Okay, here is what I'm talking about. This is Obama on the Today Show today with Matt Lauer, who interviewed Obama in the White House. They're walking along a dingy, looks like a dungeon there in the White House. I've been there. It's just not off. It's right off the diplomatic entrance. I want to tell you, if you watch this, it's obviously a lower level of the White House. It's right off the diplomatic reception room, and it's where the doctor's office is, the official White House physician. There's a lot there, but then in the elevator that runs you up to the residence quarters on the upper floors of the White House is there, too. It's low ceiling, archways. Anyway, this is where Matt Lauer, walking along, which is, of course, in the TV requirement. You interview somebody, you got to get B-roll or live walking, strolling along deep in conversation. This is done to raise the stature of the TV journalist that the president would willingly, or any other guest, would willingly take a stroll with a journalist. And I know this stuff. One of my first interviews was with Barbara Walters for something that she did. And it was at the Pierre Hotel. Not far, it's across the street from the plaza, essentially. And when the interview was over, she said, okay, we got to go outside over to Central Park and walk through the B-roll. I said, what? Yeah, we got to go over there and just, we're not talking. We'll talk, but there's no microphone. It's just B-roll. We're walking to the park. So why do we have to do that? Well, it's just the way it's done. Well, what's the point? Why do you want to spend time showing that with no audio? It's the formula. And it is. So that's the mental picture I want you to see. Obama strolling along with Matt Lauer in the lower levels of the White House. And Matt Lauer says, you were going to change the tone in Washington. You wanted to unite people, but they are not united. Has it been a failure?
Sometimes we look at the past through rose-colored glasses. It's been pretty divided in the past. There have been times where people beat each other with canes, and we had things like the Civil War. So there have been times where it's been pretty rough. But there's no doubt that politics in Washington are so much more divided than the American people are. And part of what I want to do in this last address is to remind people, you know what, we got a lot of good things going for us, and if we can get our politics right, it turns out that we're not as divided on the ideological spectrum as people make us out to be.
Well, that's a gold mine. I mean, it depends on who you're talking about here. I've never seen the country as divided as it is in my lifetime. Now, let me think about that. Media hated Reagan, and media hated Nixon, Watergate, but the country wasn't so much divided. Once they'd figured out that they'd agreed or discovered that they thought Nixon was guilty. The country was not divided during Reagan. The media was. The establishments were, but the country was all in, totally united behind Reagan. The other interesting aspect is Washington. He says there's no doubt politics in Washington is so much more divided than the American people are. Well, I'm not so sure about that. You know, the day-to-day image is of a Washington divided, but if you ask me, the Republican and Democrat establishments are on a lot of the same pages, which I think is what is leading to all the divisiveness among the American people. Half the American people feel like they've got no representation of Washington whatsoever. But the divisions are real, and they are marked, and the big reason is Barack Hussein Obama and his undisguised now efforts at transforming and changing this country into something it was not founded to be. And all of this disunity, this division is justified, it's warranted, just like the anger associated with it is totally justified and warranted and understandable. And it is unique to Obama. He has brought it about. And he's going to sit there and try to tell the American people tonight, if we get our politics right, Turns out we're not as divided on the spectrum as people make us out to be here in Washington. And there's a lot of good things happening out there you just don't know about. You just got to hang in there, be tough, and let me finish my work. Like Loretta Lynch. Did you see what she said? She's an attorney general. Loretta Lynch actually said that she is in the process of putting things in place that will make it impossible to dismantle the Obama influence in the Department of Justice for years. No matter who the next president is, and no matter who the next attorney general is, she says, we are putting in place various things to make it veritably impossible. These are my words, not hers, but her intent. Veritably impossible to unravel what we've done here. Well, now, one of the things she's talking about is putting career people into positions of great authority. Not appointed people, but career people who are leftists and liberals who will not be leaving the DOJ with the outgoing administration. They're there for life, or as long as they want to stay, or until somebody fires them. And I guarantee you what they're counting on is, let's say, new president, pick your name, whoever it is, a Republican president comes in and starts firing people left and right, the media and Obama, in this case Loretta Lynch, are going to start squealing like stuck pigs and throwing allegations and accusations around. This is going to happen no matter what the Republicans do. Whoever becomes the next president, if it's a Republican, had better get used to what's going to happen, because it's also going to be unprecedented. The involvement of not just Obama, by the way, but a lot of people in his administration who are going to do everything they can to continue to be involved in the governing of the country. Compared to, say, somebody like George W. Bush, who vanished, who disappeared, who didn't have a single comment for years about what Obama was doing, because that's the gentleman's agreement. The election's over. The new president won. He gets to do what he wants to do. There's an implied trust that every president elected is going to revere and honor the Constitution. And so you get out of the way. You had your time as president. You're gone, and you stay gone. And most prior, Reagan was that way. Clinton was for a while, but that was mostly because of Lewinsky. But it didn't take long for Clinton to get back in gear. He and Al Gore both got back into gear going overseas and making speeches against the United States and against the Bush administration to both American allies and American enemies. So here's the next bite from Obama. This is the big dose of the Limbaugh theorem I think you can expect tonight.
No, I think we went through a lot over these last 10 years.
Stop that just a second. Stop that. I forgot to tell you what Matt Lauer's question is, and it's kind of relevant. It was not a continuation of the previous comment. Matt Lauer said, well, now I know in your speech it's traditional to say the State of the Union's strong. And when it comes to the emotional state of our union, and when I go out and talk to people, the words I hear that most often in terms of how they're feeling right now, they talk about fear. They talk about frustration. They talk about fatigue. Any of those words surprise you, sir?
No, I think we went through a lot over these last 10 years. We went through Katrina. We went through the Iraq War. We went through the worst financial crisis in our lifetimes. We are still battling terrorism. People are still recovering from some of the economic blows that hit. And it is sometimes important for us to step back and take measure of how far we've come.
There you have it. That's it. That's the Limbaugh theorem on display. Matt Lauer says, the words I hear when I talk to people out there, fear, frustration, fatigue. Obama answers, well, it's understandable. And he lists things that happened before he took office. Hurricane Katrina, the Iraq War. In other words, George W. Bush. George W. Bush. Worst financial crisis in our life, George W. Bush. These things all happened before Obama took office. Still battling terrorism as though that all predates him, too. Still battling terrorism as though it's, just another part of the day, like so many other things going on. None of what the president wants to acknowledge the American people are afraid of have to do with him. None of what's happened the last 7 years are a factor in people being afraid, fearful, frustrated. This is what I mean by the Limbaugh theorem on full display. He's going to clearly try to continue to blame as much as he can on Bush and what he inherited, and then claim that if people are upset and unhappy and dissatisfied, it's because of that stuff, not because of things he has done.